Manitoba prosecutors say they want a 16-year-old boy accused of stabbing another teen to be tried as an adult. The accused, whose identity is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, is a student at Neelin High School in Brandon. Police say he attacked a black student with a sword while uttering threats, leaving the other teen with deep stab wounds on his hands, thigh, and chest. Brandon police said the attack was a premeditated assault that targeted people of color. The teen suspect was facing attempted murder assault with a weapon and other weapons-related charges, but those charges were upgraded this week to 3 counts of attempted murder. The Crown is now seeking an adult sentence for the accused if he pleads guilty. The maximum adult sentence for attempted murder is life in prison. Nicholas Bala is a youth justice and family law expert at Queen's University and joins me now via Zoom. Good morning, rather. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning.
How common is it for prosecutors to seek an adult sentence for a teen?
Well, it occurs only in the most serious of cases, and this is certainly getting to that area. But often, even for homicides, the court imposes a youth sentence. So this is a unusual case. It's also a very disturbing case. The racist overtones to the assaults are very concerning.
What crimes would prosecutors say warrant an adult sentence? We talked about the seriousness of this situation, but what are some of the other crimes that could possibly, be looked at as, warrant an adult sentence?
The majority of cases where an adult sentence is sought and particularly imposed involve murder, intentional murder, with sometimes with aggravating circumstances, someone being effectively executed as part of revenge for a drug deal.
How common is it for a teen to be sentenced, an adult, for an attempted murder charge or some of the other crimes that you had listed?
We don't have good national data about this, but it would certainly be under 40 cases a year. So in Canada, um, and there are over 100 homicides by young people. So it's a small portion of cases. The youth justice system allows for a sentence for murder for up to 10 years. That system is focused on rehabilitation while holding young people accountable. And our regime, and I think the Supreme Court recently reinforced this, is based on having sentences that are less severe than for adult sentences, less lengthy, and more of a focus on rehabilitation. And by and large, I think our system has functioned well. That doesn't mean there's never a case where an adult sentence should be imposed.
Nicholas, what are some of the things here that the Crown has to consider when putting forward an adult sentence request?
Well, the nature of the offense, its effect on the victim and community are certainly factors, but the critical factors that the Supreme Court has identified are the maturity of the accused, in this case, the young offender. What are the circumstances of his childhood? In a situation like this, one is going to want to know, was he deliberately planning this event? And I think there's probably evidence on his cell phone and so on about what he was saying and thinking, and his prospects for rehabilitation. But a key factor is, was he really acting in the way of an adult, and should he therefore have an adult sentence?
Nicholas, I understand that you've had a chance to read this case, and given the details that we have here, how likely is it that a judge will grant this request?
Well, it wouldn't be wise to predict what's going to happen. I have been, like others, following this case in the media, following what's been going on in Brandon. But there'll be evidence, psychiatric evidence, psychological evidence about his particular state, about his particular childhood, about his circumstances, Was he someone who was being bullied, for example, by other youth, which unfortunately sometimes in these incidents in schools, and fortunately we have few of them, but there have been cases of young people coming into schools and starting to often with a firearm, shoot other people because they've been bullied. It's affected their mental well-being. It's in no way an excuse or justification, but that might be taken into account in sentencing. So we'd have to know a lot more about this. An adult sentence for a situation like this would be unusual, and the Crown is going to have a significant obligation and onus to satisfy.
Okay. Now, if this request is granted, I mean, what would the judicial process look like?
So the key point here is that the trial will always be under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which means that, for example, there'll be no identifying information in the media. And if he's found guilty or pleads guilty, and I should say in this case, there seems to be a fair amount of physical and other evidence about what actually happened. But once you move to the guilt stage, then to the sentencing stage, there'll be quite a lot of evidence about the young person, his background, his present state. And indeed, these cases usually take, a year and a half to get to that stage. How has he been doing in detention? Yeah, I think the young person right now is in youth detention, which is very appropriate. Sometimes young people in this kind of situation, their offending behavior may continue and even become worse when they're in custody. But sometimes they start to change, and that will be taken into account. One of the technicalities here is that the period in youth trial detention um, is not necessarily deducted from the sentence the way that it is for an adult. For an adult, one deducts that time. For a young person, not necessarily. So he could spend a year and a half before he's even sentenced, and that time would not necessarily be deducted.
Nicholas, finally, I want to ask you here. We have about 30 seconds left. What impact do you think that this case will have on Manitoba's judicial system if the suspect is tried and sentenced as an adult?
Well, as I said, this case has got a lot of attention, understandably, and particularly in Brandon, there is a lot of concern about racism in the school system. The school system is responding there. The community is responding. But is this sort of symptomatic of a wider set of problems of racism in the schools and how victims, now the Black community in Brandon feels about this? And on a legal perspective, this is as a law professor, I'd say this is a very interesting and somewhat unique situation. We don't have a lot of precedents for it in Canada, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me this morning and for some insight into this. Thank you once again.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Nicholas Bala is a youth justice and family law expert at Queen's University. The case will be back in courts in 2 weeks. There is no trial date set yet.